You ready to do this, Matt?
Yes, sir. Punch it, Chewy.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot is Matt Shaw. We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 217. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us at the website, fortofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by and relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button, and you can get us automatically each and every week in your ear holes. Now, you know what, Matt? I go through that every week, and I say, this place, this place, this place. You know what I realized this last week? I messed
What?
something up with the Google. I got a little thing and it's like, do the thing. And I was like, okay, blah, blah, blah. And it redirected our RSS feed on Google to the actual website. So if I
Oh,
don't update the website quick enough, it takes like half a day or a full day before it refreshes and pulls things in. And so like we'd missed like
hmm.
2 weeks of stuff. So it's all there now. Super friends, I've corrected all the mistakes. It's it's where it belongs. But I'm in the process of like waiting like 2 or 3 weeks for Google to get back to me to repoint it to the correct place so it updates automatically. So
Yeah. Wow.
there's a little behind the scenes info for the super
Yeah.
friends that wanted to know how RSS feeds and how podcast hosting works. Just a little bit.
Nice.
Matt,
Very nice.
how have you been this week? I know we talked maybe like a couple days before WandaVision, end of
Yes.
last week, and then like we didn't really talk about WandaVision, and we haven't talked
No.
really like this was probably like the least we've talked in months and months and months and months during the week.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I was really busy with work this week. There's just a lot going on, kind of stressful and just taking care of business, man.
Yeah, work, right?
Um, I mean, it's not terrible stuff, just stuff, right? It's just
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
So you get what you get. So I worked a lot more than I might normally work, especially this weekend, which was kind of a bummer.
Mm,
But that's the joy of self-employment. So
true that.
but other than that, early last week we had somebody come and paint Emmy's room and Lando's room and their bathroom. So now our whole house has been painted from when we moved in about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
So that took a few days. So we had Emmy. That's why we recorded a day early last week. Emmy was sleeping in
Yep.
my office on Monday, Tuesday.
Right. Had nothing to do,
No,
nothing
nothing
to
to do
do
with
with
the
the
national
national
championship.
championship
Nothing,
game, right? Yeah, yeah. Got it. Got it.
nothing. That was just happened to be that way.
Yeah.
Um, So they were kind of, and then Lando was in our closet, which is fine. So we've got a pretty big bathroom and then a big walk-in closet. So he was pretty far away from us. So it wasn't too big of a deal.
Yeah.
But while he was painting, we tried to keep the kids out. On Monday, we went to the outlet mall in San Marcos, which
Okay.
of course you got to drive by a Bucky's. So we stopped at
Uh,
Bucky's and got something to eat, got a few little treats and stuff, and then headed out to the mall. And really, it was just to pass as much time as possible so the fumes would have died down by the time we
yeah.
got back home. And yeah, that worked out well, actually. We had a lot of fun. The kids were really, really good. And so that was a pretty packed Monday. And then the rest of the week was pretty standard. Just in my office working, trying to watch shows while I'm doing it. Not successful this week. I just had too much to do. Um, but we did, let's see, we watched on Friday WandaVision,
Okay. Yeah.
of course.
Yep. Yep.
And I realized after we watched WandaVision, I came up with a new idea for my this has nothing to do with WandaVision,
Okay.
but what Jesse and I have started to do is plan out our weeks, like our nights, like what we're going to do.
Okay.
Because there's just so much content, there's so many things that we want to do that we end up coming to Tuesday night and it's like, well, what do you want to do? And then we have to go through every show and then make a decision. And then we only are able to watch like one episode because then it's like time for bed. So we've decided on Sundays we're gonna like map out our week. So we've mapped out this week already. And
This is like the people that like, and I've done this before too, like where you do like the food prep on Sunday nights, so you have all your
yes.
lunches and dinners for the next week, except you're
Yeah.
doing that with media consumption.
Yeah, and it's to help create a little bit of balance. So we know
Yeah.
that like Thursday night we're not going to watch any shows. Like Jesse's going to read and I'm going to play video games because I'm not making time at all to play any video games, and that's something that I do enjoy doing.
Right.
But I don't take any. I'm not taking time for it. But it's something that I like. So that was something that came to my mind. But we watched One Division, and we're not going to give anything away. Just I really enjoyed it. Um, it was exactly what I expected it to be, and I think that there were many people who I guess were expecting something different because a lot of people I saw weren't pleased with it, or it was boring to them or something. I just enjoyed it. I'm a simple man. It
Okay,
was a
so
lot of fun.
let's talk about that for a minute. We won't spoil it because we're
No,
not going to do a spoil cast on
there's
this.
not much we can
So
spoil.
that's what I wanted to
It's
kind of
already
say.
shown.
Like we got we got 2 episodes, which you were right. Like
Yeah,
we watched it also on Friday, and I still have my theories as to what I think might be going on,
right.
and those theories haven't been blown out of the water yet. Like they still could happen. I found that they were. I found it to be funny. I found it to be
Very.
enjoyable.
Yep.
Um, it is very kind of like the first episode was kind of like a Dick Van Dyke, Mary Tyler Moore, black and white TV show
Right.
themed. And the second one kind of had that more like Bewitched thing, and like especially because like the opening
The
credits was a
intro.
complete Bewitched ripoff.
Right.
Um, so I think you're right that we're gonna get some sort of different intro to each episode, especially as I think they kind of progress through the decades for the TV show kind of format that they're doing.
Yep.
Other than that, like it was fun. You can tell that there's something up. There's some sort of a mystery. There's
Mhm.
something going on. But I honestly feel like not a lot was given. If I'm just being honest, I know some people have like dissected this to death, and you can like go on the internet if you really
No,
really
right.
want to see it, and they're like this Easter egg, this and this and this, and I just kind of went,
Mhm.
it's good, it's exciting, but I don't know what it is yet.
Yeah. And that's the joy. I was telling Jesse after we watched those episodes, I said, people are going to crap on this now if they don't enjoy, if they can't sit down and just enjoy one episode of a stylistic sitcom. I feel like you're missing out on something fun. Um, but I think that when we get the ninth episode, or even the eighth episode, maybe, and it all gets revealed, you go back
Yeah.
and watch these first episodes and you'll go,
Yes, there's
oh,
gonna be a lot more that you're gonna look and go,
now I
ooh,
get it.
yeah, I
And then it'll
agree.
be even more fun to watch the second time to catch all the hints as to what you found out in
Yeah,
the latter episodes.
yeah,
So
yeah, for sure.
we really enjoyed it. And then we watched some Apple TV Plus shows. We watched For All Mankind,
Mm.
which is the TV show on Apple that is getting a second season pretty soon. About if the Russians and the Soviets actually won the space race and put the first man on the moon.
Oh,
So it's kind of this
so
alternate
yeah,
history.
yeah, yeah, kind of like the Man in the High Castle, like that kind of idea, like
Similar to that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If they'd
I
won the
gotcha.
war, this
Yep.
is not quite as devastating, obviously,
Right. Yeah.
but
Exactly.
just kind of a different space race feel. Um, so that was pretty cool. And only other thing that we did this week, I smoked a what was it, like an 8.5 pound pork butt. I
Okay.
put it on last night at midnight, and they say, oh, 90 minutes, maybe 2 pound. No, I woke up at like 7, and they were almost done. So it was finished at like
Wait,
9:30.
how it was a 9 pound pork butt,
Yeah.
and you started at what time?
11:15
And
p.m.
at 7 a.m. it was almost done. I mean,
Yeah.
8 hours.
It
That's
took about an hour
yeah.
for that.
How hot was your smoker?
225. Pretty
That's
low.
that's still pretty low. Yeah, yeah, that sounds about right. I kind of feel
So,
it's like an hour and 15 minutes.
yeah,
Usually, at least that's my experience per pound. Anyway,
right. Yeah. So we had that for dinner tonight. It was delicious. And we just shredded it and then put it in the fridge and
yeah,
then
and then rewarmed
heated
it
up
up.
what we
Yeah.
needed to heat up and then froze the rest because it's a 8.5 pound hunk of
Right.
meat for two
Yeah, I
people.
was like for the two
I
of you
mean,
and
Lando eats it,
maybe a little bit for the kids, but not a lot. Yeah.
not Emmy, but Lando likes it. Um,
Here's something to try with Emmy if she's not a big fan, because my kids will eat it, but if I shred it up and I put it like in a like a cheese quesadilla,
yeah,
my kids destroy it that way. Like they just rip into it. So
we've tried quesadillas with meat.
nothing.
She's not having it. She
Man.
eats chicken nuggets now, which is a freaking miracle. Um, I mean, what kind of 3.5-year-old, almost 4-year-old now won't do that? Whatever. So, but that was that. That was the week. It was a good week. It was a good week.
Nice,
For
nice.
sure.
So my week has been a really fun, crazy week. So, where to begin? Like I so yeah, we watched WandaVision. We watched WandaVision on Friday night, like we were saying, or I think maybe not Friday night, maybe Friday like late afternoon after I was done with work.
Yeah.
Um, really good. But then this week I did something different. So you know how I stream? Well, now it's like 5 nights a week, right? The
Right.
podcast here on Monday nights, and then Tuesday through Friday nights I stream video games. Well, this last week I did something different. I purchased a white wig so I could look like Geralt of Rivia from The Witcher 3. Because I found it for like $20 on Amazon. I was like, sure, why not? Um, so I wore it for 2 nights in a row, and everyone jumped on, and of course, everyone was joking that I looked like George Washington or some old timey, judge
Yeah.
or Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones, and so like I was laughing, and we were having a good time and rolling with it, but it got such a positive response, Matt, that I think I'm kind of in this point where like I feel like I kind of have to wear it now
Yeah.
every night that I stream this game until I'm done with this game. And
I like it.
and
I'm in.
I am getting near the end, but then I also have DLC to play. So I have a
Right.
feeling I'm going to be wearing this wig for maybe another 2 weeks or so.
Nice.
Anyway, it's also funny cuz like my beard, like if I would cut, okay, let's say if I had the color that Santa had in his beard when he
Mhm.
visited my stream before Christmas, then with the wig, that would look better. But because
Right.
it's like this white wig with my like brown facial hair with my beard, it just looks goofy. It's
Yeah.
funny. It's really funny. So I did that on Tuesday, like Wednesday and Thursday. Tuesday I streamed, but I wasn't wearing the wig. Friday night I went on Super Murgatroyd's Positive Power Hour after party choo choo hype train fun time
Wow.
show, whatever. It's this after party show. And
Nice.
I was on it with 9 streamers, and we were having a great conversation about like inspiration, things that inspire us, things that like we find inspiring, talking about inspiring others. And it was just a great time to like hear from a whole bunch of other streamers. We talked some about mental health. We talked about like, what gets us up in the morning, what continues to keep us wanting to stream or do content creation, podcast, whatever we're kind of involved in. And that was just a fun time. And I was there with a lot of other streamers, but all these other streamers are like my friends. They're people and friendships that I've made in this last year, and just like great people. So it was a lot of fun. um it was just a good time. That was Friday night, and then over the weekend I found out that one of the streamers that I've become friends with, she actually lives like 5 minutes from my house.
Oh, wow.
And it was crazy that that we figured this out because we were posting a bunch of pictures in a Discord somewhere, and we
Okay.
were talking about, like, celebrities we've met, and I realized she'd met some of the same celebrities I had at this event, and it was at the same event, and the celebrity was wearing the exact same clothes. I was like, we were there on the same day, and so we started just kind of
Nice.
chatting. Found out she lives, no joke, 5 minutes from my house.
That's crazy.
So this weekend, previously I talked with her because she wanted to build a new computer for streaming.
Uh-huh.
She wanted to take greater control of her content, and she got all her parts in. So on Sunday, I went over to her house and helped her assemble and build and install her PC,
Oh,
and kind of
nice.
get it all, help getting it set up, and doing that. And that
Yeah.
was just a lot of fun. Like, it was one of those things where, like, yeah, it's pretty much kind of like what I've done in the past for work a whole bunch, but it was just cool. We just got to kind of hang out and chat and talk and
Yeah.
put together a PC and get it all set up, and get her on a path to, being able to stream from a PC, which is, a better setup than she had. But it was just fun. Like, I just had a real good time. So shout out to
Awesome.
Starlight Embers. She's gonna be streaming on through a PC now. So
Nice.
a lot of good times. But and then I also
Cool.
had my nephew, Jake, turned 4 this weekend, and so we went over and did cake and ice cream and let our kids run around their kids and
Yeah.
whatnot, all that stuff. So it was a great week. It was a lot of fun. Um, it just kind of seemed to
Good.
go fast, though, if I'm being completely honest. Like, it just went really fast.
Nice.
So anyway, that's what happened for me in my week. Matt, I think it's time that we do the thing we do every week here on the podcast.
Yes.
But I gotta say, I feel like this week we gotta do something a little special, a little different. I say that this week, when we kill the Bothans, we do it quick and we do it with lightsabers.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Quick and clean.
Let's do it. I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Matt, we're into Rebel Intelligence. What do you have for me this week?
Let's keep it on lightsabers and let's talk Lucasfilm.
Ooh, for sure.
But let's talk Lucasfilm video games.
Ooh.
Right now, as we know, and as all gamers lament, EA has exclusivity with Star Wars.
Yeah.
So Star Wars game is made, it's made by EA. And EA has not been great so far in, I would say, most gamers' opinions on making Star Wars content. The
Jedi
best
Fallen
thing they
Order.
ever did, yes, the
Yeah.
best thing they ever
Yeah.
did was make a non-EA game with Respawn.
Yeah.
Like, that's the best thing they ever did was
Yeah.
like, yeah, Respawn, you make a game. And they made an amazing game, one of the best games I've ever played. And I think Lucasfilm took notice because they are overhauling their video game licensing efforts and they're rebranding themselves back to Lucasfilm Games.
Okay. Yeah,
They
yeah.
used to have Lucasfilm Games back in like the 80s, early 90s, maybe,
That's where the
when they
X-Wing
were
and the
putting
TIE
out.
Fighter games were.
Yes,
Oh
the old
gosh.
TIE Fighter
Yep.
games. I want to say maybe Dark Forces
Dark
was.
Forces was Lucasfilm. Yep.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
pretty sure. And they had some other kind of interesting games that weren't Star Wars related, but they're kind of going back to that and they're shopping ideas around and they're letting more developers get involved. So we have a confirmation from Lucasfilm Games that Ubisoft is making apparently a very massive open world Star Wars game. Now that's all
Yes.
exciting.
Oh.
I think we're like 6 years out from it.
Yeah, okay, probably true. I mean,
but it's coming eventually.
okay, so this is interesting though, because I want to ask you something. The article you read, I don't know if it mentions this, but I think EA had like a 10-year deal.
Yes.
So my question is, if Ubisoft is getting the rights to make an open world game, they start working on the game now, knowing that if it releases past that 2-year window, like I'm assuming they can't release anything in the next 2 years.
While they're right,
but they can actually start working. They don't have to wait till that expires in order to work on it. It just has to be that they can't release their game with the Star Wars IP till after the contracts run up with EA.
I believe that is the case. Yes. Okay. So that's super exciting in and of itself. But let's stick at Lucasfilm. I'm going to do a 2-for-1 here since we're talking about Lucasfilm Games. And this week, a little teaser trailer was announced for an Indiana Jones video game.
Yeah, I saw that.
Coming from Bethesda. And Bethesda, they're the masterminds behind games like Wolfenstein, which you'll say, oh yeah, Nazis, this works with what we're doing
with Indiana. Yeah.
They also did Doom and Doom Eternal, and they're
the Fallout games, right?
Fallout, they're behind Skyrim. So they've been they're quite well known. They've lost a little bit of love with gamers recently on some of their projects, taking a little longer and not being quite as polished, especially Fallout 76.
Right.
But still a very big game, or a very big game developer. And I think we should expect some pretty awesome stuff. Now they've got their hands full, so I don't know how long this one. They've got a lot in their chamber that people are looking forward to over at Bethesda. So hopefully they've expanded. Also of note, Bethesda was purchased by Microsoft earlier this year, or I guess late last year.
Yeah, 2020.
Unknown if this game is going to be exclusive to Xbox or a timed exclusive or none of that at all. It will be interesting to see, because that's the first thing I thought was, this better not be exclusive to Xbox.
Right. Yeah.
Xbox or whatever.
Sure.
So it remains to be seen, but there you
go.
So
it sounds like to me, because Lucasfilm Games will be the the owner of the IP for the Indiana Jones stuff, right?
Yes.
So if it's both, it sounds like Ubisoft for a Star Wars game, Bethesda for an Indiana Jones game. So it sounds like that they might not do the kind of the exclusivity 10-year deal like EA got.
Yeah.
Which I think is actually, I think is really good. Because I gotta say, like, while I love Jedi Fallen Order, the Battlefront games, they just like,
not for me.
I played both of them, but it was always like short periods of time, and then kind of fell off them. I haven't played the what's it called, Rogue Squadron, is that the name of it? Or Squadrons, right?
Yeah. Squadrons, yeah.
Do you like it?
I with this game I've realized I just don't like space shooter games.
You don't like aerial combat games?
It's just hard.
Fair enough.
It's hard for me.
Fair enough.
As complex as I want to get with those kind of shooters, Star Fox. Anything more than that, count me out.
Well, this will be interesting to see kind of what happens. I mean, I like the fact that they're going to take a different approach this go around, because if they find a development house, that's going to do like Ubisoft, right? Like going to them for like an open world game, right? Like think like Assassin's Creed, except instead of being an assassin, you're going to be a Jedi Knight with a lightsaber, and you're going to go around and do all that. Like that kind of makes sense to me because they're kind of known for doing that. An Indiana
Yeah.
Jones game by the people that make Fallout and the Wolfenstein, like that could also work. I just like this.
It's all great.
I feel like there's more options,
on.
and I think options is what we need right now.
Yes. Yes. It's going to be epic, guys. It's going to be awesome.
I love it.
Look forward to that.
I want to talk about something that came up I kind of thought was interesting, Matt. So, I don't know if you remember, but a little while ago we talked about the fact that there's a Dungeons and Dragons movie that Paramount's developing starring Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Well, apparently there's a report from the Hollywood Reporter that's saying like the writer Derek Kolstad, who's working on that, is also developing a pitch for a Dungeons and Dragons TV series or maybe a streaming series. And that it's not going to be the same, but it's going to be kind of in the same world, and it's going to be something different. Like it could be some sort of a tie-in to the movie or not. Like it could be different. But apparently this is being pitched, and Derek Kolstad is the writer who wrote the original John Wick movies.
Okay.
And so it sounds like he's trying to go with kind of like, a heavy action, this and that. He hasn't written an entire series before, but he has had a hand in writing some of the upcoming episodes for the Marvel series Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And so like he's done some stuff, but it seems like that not only is he pitching this movie that looks like it, could go, but a series as well. And so I think this is interesting because obviously let's be honest, there was a big hole in kind of the idea of like fantasy, some sort of fantasy series once Game of Thrones left the air.
Yeah.
And fantasy hadn't had a really big, huge pop culture moment in quite a long time. And then along comes Game of Thrones, and it does this huge business for HBO. Everyone I knew watched Game of Thrones. Everyone knew the characters, or people at least got onto it like later on. And I like the fact that there's people that are trying to do something. Like we know that the Lord of the Rings stuff, and we'll get to that. Like we know that's going to happen, but we need something that's fantasy that's going to feel kind of like The Witcher. I mean, The Witcher series came out, and we know we're getting another one of those coming up this August. But to hear that we're talking a D&D movie and a D&D series, I think Hollywood's really catching on to the fact that like what used to be super nerdy back in the day has become exciting and more mainstream. The fact that I can say, hey, we're talking about a real D&D movie produced by Hollywood that's going to have a big budget and potentially a D&D series, like that's exciting news. Like that's not something 10 years ago we would have ever thought would have been a possibility.
No, I agree. I think it's awesome. I'm excited about it. I mean, like I've been mentioning, we've been in Middle Earth the last 10 days a lot.
Right.
And, every time I leave it, I miss it. Miss that kind of high fantasy, epic storytelling. And I'm hopeful that the Dungeons and Dragons show, movie, and the Lord of the Rings, and there's actually a couple of shows that Jesse's excited about from books that she's read that are going to be on Netflix and stuff. Don't ask me what they are because I only mostly pay attention, but I don't always. But there's some interesting stuff coming out this year in kind of that fantasy realm, at least news. I shouldn't say that they're coming up releasing this year because the Lord of the Rings show's been in production for 48 years and we haven't seen anything yet. So,
well,
not even a freaking image. But
so like to go kind of with this, Breed and I had a conversation, and the other day we were talking about, I don't know, the boys getting old enough to date eventually and what that's going to be like. And she said, can our boys just grow up and be nerds and not, not be around girls or whatever? And I said, hey, look, everything that used to be nerdy was the things that like I loved, like Lord of the Rings and D&D and Star Wars, and Like all that stuff is Marvel Comics. I mean, all that stuff is so wildly popular now that it's mainstream. So like wanting your kids to be nerdy so that they won't like date when they're in high school and what, like that's like in the past now. Like the explosion of the internet and so readily available, like we don't have those like little separate communities anymore where like, oh, I'm a D&D nerd and I'm a Star Wars nerd and I'm a Star Trek, like that just doesn't exist. There's the barriers and boundaries aren't there anymore. So the interesting thing means like, it's 2020 and we can freely and openly talk about a D&D movie and a D&D series.
Sure.
Go back to 1990. You said that out loud. Like some parents would be freaking out. They're like, he's of the devil. It would be a completely different story.
Yep. So, absolutely.
Anyway, good time to grow up. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of growing up, never mind this.
I was like, no, come on. I'm like, let me hear the segue.
I got nowhere to go.
Dang it.
Disneyland's going to open up. Isn't that exciting?
Yes.
As a COVID vaccination site.
See, that's still exciting. Just in a different way.
At least, well, that's exciting because Disneyland's going to be opening up in some capacity. And it's exciting that we are finally at a point in our lives and in this pandemic where vaccines are needing to be distributed in large quantities in large places.
Yes.
So thank goodness. Good for Disney for stepping up. I'm sure that they have some self-interest in this. The more people we can get vaccinated, the faster we can get our business back in line. But kind of a cool idea. And I've seen this in San Antonio, at least. We had the Alamo Dome here in San Antonio become a mass vaccination site that, you had to be in, group 1A and 1B to register for it. But it was like, they were doing 2,000 vaccinations in a day, and then they were going to do 4,000 the next day. So I think this is becoming a thing where these independent private parties are trying to just do good by the world and host guests in the words of Disney, but anybody to get vaccinated. So exciting.
I think that's at least a smart thing, right? Because they have a big a property of land. That's not a big area of land, a big property. I can put words together, I promise. And Disney is very well known for trying to do community outreach and and work with the communities in which it resides. So the fact that they're going to open up their gates to Southern California residents, locally to Orange County residents right there in Anaheim and the surrounding areas, to bring them in, like that's one of the things, like obviously we don't really get political on the podcast, and this isn't political, but we've said this before, that we took great strides and great leaps in order to like get everyone we could working towards a vaccine. But the problem now is that the vaccine has some requirements, like it has to be kept to a certain temperature, it has to be pretty cold, it has to be used by a certain time, and like we don't have enough people to deliver this, and trying to like rely on like places like CVS and Walgreens and whatever to them to give out the vaccines, it's just not enough. I heard that President-elect Biden is going to try to help like convince like retired doctors and nurses to come back and help administer vaccines, and hearing that Disneyland is going to open up to like, try to have a big site so people like that, like that's what we need to see, like in order to really start moving past this and to start catching up with the vaccinations. Like we need some out of the box type of thinking to find a way to say we need to be able to administer these a lot faster and to a lot more people. And so I like the fact that the Disney company is throwing open the gates, and you can go get a vaccine. I mean, you probably can't go ride any rides, obviously, but that's still something that's kind of cool. I like that. Yeah. That's good news. I like that.
It is.
Speaking of Disney and some good, maybe weird I don't know. It depends on how you look at it.
Okay.
So you remember a little while ago when HBO said, hey, we're going to start releasing our movies day and date when they would go to the theaters. They're also going to be on HBO Max. And we're going to run them on HBO Max for like 30 days. And a lot of the actors and actresses in Hollywood started kind of putting up a little bit of a stink about it, saying like, hey, you know, we do these movies because we want to have a big screen experience. We talked about that a lot with Christopher Nolan and Tenet, right?
Yeah.
Well, Disney has now said that they're going to kind of jump on this hybrid release bandwagon of putting something into theaters, but then because of the pandemic, also releasing it to their streaming services. So a number of outlets are saying that the Disney-owned Searchlight Pictures has released that its upcoming film Nomadland is going to be released on the same day that it goes to theaters to Hulu. And that there's going to be something else that's going to follow up with it that's also going to be released. They've talked about doing some of this stuff. I mean, we know that Disney did the Mulan release, and it was like that premium thing, but they're talking about this Nomadland.
Right.
And the interesting thing here is that Disney has a massive, massive stake in Hulu. So things like Searchlight Pictures, where they can have their more, we'll say, adult type movies, you know, maybe a little less family friendly stuff, they can put directly to Hulu versus like Disney Plus. Yeah. But then if they do other stuff that would be more open to Disney Plus, they can go to Disney Plus. So like, I really kind of was wondering if any of the other major studios was going to fall in line with what Warner Brothers did, because it seemed like there was some friction, seemed like there was some pushback in Hollywood.
Yeah, there was.
But now Disney's kind of looking like they may start adopting this model as well, which for me as a consumer, I'm all on board and I love, because right now I don't want to go anywhere near a movie theater. If I was a movie theater owner or owned a chain of movie theaters, man, I would be in a bad way, because I would realize that this is, if everyone starts doing this, I mean, this is the end.
Yeah, it looks like this is where kind of the train is headed, and I would be uncomfortable, we'll say.
Very, very uncomfortable.
And I'm all in, you know.
Well, as a consumer, it's really good for us.
Yeah, it's great, especially as a dad consumer who just like can't get out and do it. And
well, plus
more and more people are getting bigger and bigger TVs, and the technology is better and better and better, and the quality of streaming is higher and higher and higher, to the point where, yes, of course there's a difference, and there is an experience when you go to a movie theater.
Sure. Yep.
But I only need that experience for like 2 movies in a year, I'll say. I don't need that experience for all of the movies for me. Again, that's just my opinion. That's just for me.
As a father with young children, it's easier to do a movie at home than taking your kids to the theaters. You know, it's just not saying that like kids can't behave in movie theaters, because they absolutely can. But,
of course.
But they, you know, little kids get antsy after a little while, and, you know, they start wanting to move around and run around and dance and lay down and whatever, right?
Right.
Being able to do that in your own living room and not feel like you're being a bother to anyone else.
Sure.
Oh, I'll take that. So.
Agreed. Speaking of something that I'll take more Moon Knight series news.
Ooh, okay.
Last week we reported a bunch of stuff about Moon Knight.
You're really excited about Moon Knight.
I hope it doesn't let me down. I'm going to be easily my most anticipated series. Like, that's Marvel for sure.
Yeah.
So Moon Knight, and I don't know anything about it, but I know Oscar Isaac's in it. And now we know My man Ethan Hawke is going to be in this show, and he will be playing the villain. We don't know who that
Ooh.
villain is yet, but we do know that Ethan Hawke will be playing the villain of Oscar Isaac's Moon Knight. This is going to be so cool, and
Yeah.
I can't wait. Oh
That's
my
really exciting
gosh.
casting news.
Ugh, I love Marvel's casting. 99.9% of the time, I'm like, oh, yeah, I am so excited about that. When you can throw in these incredible actors and actresses in these roles. Also, shout out to something that wasn't in Rebel Intelligence that I'm just going to quickly mention since they're talking about casting in Marvel series. Matt Damon has been cast in the Loki series.
I heard that.
So,
I heard that. Now,
is he going to be playing fake Loki in a play again?
yes, that's exactly what I think
Who
it's going to
knows?
be. I think
But he'll be in it.
he's going to reprise his little cameo role. What was
I
that
hope.
from that was from
Ragnarok?
yeah,
No.
Thor Ragnarok. Yeah.
It was from Ragnarok.
Yeah. I think he's going to be reprised. Oh,
So
like
get excited for
I
fake Loki.
yes, I
It was in Love and Thunder.
so
Sorry, not in the Loki.
for Love and Thunder.
In Love and Thunder.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
That was one of the
he will be
highlights of that
reprising-
movie.
Oh, absolutely.
That was one of the highlights because
We were
like I just didn't
"That's Matt
expect it.
Damon?"
I know. I was like, Matt Damon. What?
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
oh gosh, it's
The
so
casting
exciting.
is just off the chain. The movies keep getting more interesting, in
Yeah.
my opinion. I'm just so excited. Moon Knight's sounding cooler and cooler. So, yo, let's go, Marvel.
Let's go. All right, Matt. You said you wanted some news.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring you exactly
Oh.
what you want.
Okay.
So here's some news about the Lord of the Rings series on Amazon. Because I know we haven't known a lot about it. Like we've gotten a few little scraps of information. We got a little bit of audio. We got just a little bit. So there is a confirmed synopsis now on the OneRing.net, which has been like the website for Lord of the Rings stuff prior to Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
Amazon Studios is currently filming in New Zealand. And apparently the cast is about as large as population-wise as the country itself. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So there's a lot of people involved, which we kind of figured was going to be the case. It is set in the Second Age, about 1,000 or so years before The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
And they're saying that the show will concern itself with characters both familiar and new, and reckon with the fact that the Dark Lord Sauron has returned to cast shadow and flame across Middle-earth. And here's the full synopsis. Amazon Studios' forthcoming series brings to screen for the very first time the heroic legends of the fabled Second Age of Middle-earth's history. This epic drama is set thousands of years before the events of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, and will take viewers back to an era in which great powers were forged, kingdoms rose to glory and fell to ruin, unlikely heroes were tested, hope hung by the finest of threads, and the greatest villain that ever flowed from Tolkien's pen threatened to cover all the world in darkness. Beginning in a time of relative peace, the series follows an ensemble cast of characters, both familiar and new, as they confront the long-feared reemergence of evil to Middle-earth. From the darkest depths of the Misty Mountains, to the majestic forests of the elf capital of Lindon, to the breathtaking island kingdom of Numenor, to the furthest reaches of the map, these kingdoms and characters will carve out legacies that live on long after they are gone. That's the official synopsis for what this is. So, what this tells me is, A, we know that they can use anything that was basically done in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, right? So, like, the beginning where they talk about the fall of the ring and the crafting of the rings of powers and whatnot, that this series is going to take place prior to Sauron gaining all of his power. And it's probably going to cover some of that. It might even cover him forging the rings. And my guess is this series will probably end at the last battle, the last alliance of men and elves, when they topple Sauron and the ring is cut from his hand and it becomes Isildur's bane. That's my guess where the series will end. I don't think they're going to end the first season there, because then what the freak do you do for the next, however many
Yeah.
seasons it gets greenlit. But it does sound like we're going to get this, we're going to go back to Middle Earth. It's going to be the Second Age. So I think we're going to see some familiar faces. We're going to see Elrond is my guess. We're going to see maybe Glorfindel, and we're going to see Sauron. Those are probably the three we're going to see. They could do a frame narrative where maybe, and I'm just saying, like, just maybe, they could bring back either Elijah Wood as Frodo or Ian McKellen as Gandalf, who maybe is like recording a history of the events of the Second Age and like transcribing it or something.
Mm-hmm.
That could happen. That's kind of a pipe dream, I think, on my part.
Right.
But it is interesting. They're filming it now. So my guess is a 2022 release.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yep. You asked and you
so.
received. There's some solid concrete evidence on the Lord of the Rings series with Amazon.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. I'm excited and
Yes.
hope, pessimistic and optimistic. So show me something. That's all I got to say.
Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, right?
That's right.
Do you have anything else, Matt?
No, I'm out.
Ooh, I got one more for you.
One more.
And I saved the best. And I mean the best for last.
Okay.
Matt, you know my man Chris Evans?
I do. I know him.
We knew him way back in the day as Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four movies. We've known him from movies like Knives Out. But he did a couple movies where he played a character named Steve Rogers, Captain America. Here's the thing. We knew that he said he was done, that Avengers Endgame was it. He was kind of hanging up the mantle. He was handing the shield over to Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson, which it seemed like, guess what? There is big news that says that Chris Evans is not maybe done entirely, that he may be picking back up the mantle of Captain America for some unknown Marvel project that's in development. They explicitly said it's not going to be a new Captain America movie, but it's basically going to be kind of similar to the deal that Robert Downey Jr. did with Tony Stark, where he would appear like in the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
But like it wasn't he wasn't going to do another Iron Man movie. So it seems like from everything that I've been seeing that Captain America himself, Steve Rogers, aka Chris Evans, is going to make some sort of return to the MCU. Now, all this news started breaking this last week, and Chris Evans tweeted out, and all he said was 3 words: news to me. However, this is Marvel. This is the MCU.
Yeah.
We know that they try to shroud everything and not spoil things. Yep. This would be a massive spoiler. I'm not going to believe what anything Chris Evans is going to say on this issue at this moment.
Right.
Because to me, that would it's too easy to think, okay, it's a smokescreen. I mean, we've seen so many other actors say, no, that's not me. Tom Holland's like, no, I'm not doing Spider-Man.
Right.
And then who's Spider-Man? Stuff like that. So from what it seems like, we could get Captain America showing back up. I don't know what that's going to be in. I could speculate a whole bunch. Here's the thing that would make the most sense to me. We know that he went and lived in some sort of multiverse at the end of Endgame. And in order to live out his existence with Peggy before he came back and dropped off the shield, right? What if in that existence where he lived in a world where the X-Men existed?
You are.
What if
You are dreaming.
what if he lived in the existence of the world where the Fantastic Four existed?
Uh-huh.
We know that we're going to get a Fantastic Four movie. We know because
Yeah.
Kevin Feige said, "Look, we haven't forgot about the X-Men. The X-Men is my first love. We're just trying to make sure we're going to do this right."
Right.
And we know that they're going to make sure that they're going to introduce the X-Men in a way that's going to make sense, that they can bring them in, because we know they want to be able to expand upon that, because it's a whole new cavalcade of heroes and villains that they can inject it now into the MCU. That's going to be amazing. We know this.
Right.
This is known. So
Yeah.
I think we could get some other bigger property, and Steve Rogers, Captain America, could have interacted and somehow be the linchpin or something that helped kick that off. It's a possibility that I think would make some sense for a reason why they could bring him back. Maybe it's only flashbacks, maybe it's whatever. Like, it's not.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be like based around him. I don't think he's going to be necessarily the main lead,
Okay.
but he's going to be important and integral in some way, shape, or another.
Okay.
That's where I'm at. That's where my head says right now.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, we'll see. The rumors are too heavy for
Yeah.
it not to be true.
Yeah.
And I think it's bigger. I think he's going to get a Disney Plus show.
Ooh.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we had a Disney Plus show showing his life that he lived in the alternate universe.
Kind of
You
like
get to see
the
him have the
Obi-Wan
happy ending
series, but
What?
kind of like the Obi-Wan series for Star Wars, but over with Captain America. Like, what did he do during this period of time?
Exactly. Yeah, so kind of
That's a
get a
good
little
idea.
bit of conclusion, or his life with Peggy and what exactly he did, and maybe there is introduction with other characters that we're going to see later. We'll see,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. I'm glad to hear it.
Interesting. That's it. That's the last thing I had in Rebel Intelligence. I had that one little
Nice.
nugget I wanted to save and hold back for you.
Right on.
Super Friends, last week we had this wonderful conversation where Matt and I took the idea of, like, how could we fix the DC universe? All their films, like, if we were in charge, what would we try to do to give it a rebirth, to reboot it? And we kind of went through some of that, and then we asked you, the Super Friends, what would you do? If you were going to reboot the movies, reboot their whole franchise, try to build and get something that's sustainable, who would you start with? And we asked you that, and we got some responses, so we're going to read those now. We're going to start like we always do over at fortofnerd@gmail.com. And we have Peter Christensen. He says, "Dear nerds, happy WandaVision Day." This was obviously written on Friday. He says, "We watched both episodes last night and we can't wait for more. It was enjoyable and funny, sure, but the very subtle introduction of mystery has us hooked. Boy, did it feel nice to hear the Marvel intro theme for the first time in a long time." And I will agree real quick, Matt. When that came on, I was like, oh, it's the Marvel intro on something new. Like, that was nice. That was
cool.
nice. He says, one comment on Quibi. All the big names that made content for them didn't help. They got paid, and they were expensive for Quibi. They didn't care about the platform. Like Theranos, it's a huge 10-figure flameout that looks like a wasteful tech investment, but also like Theranos, all of the funding came from outside of the tech industry because savvier tech investors wanted nothing to do with it, which kind of makes some sense. It says, I like your discussion on how to fix DC. What a mess. I know that Kevin Feige's don't grow on trees, but they need someone with a unifying vision. The MCU movies were much, much more than the sum of their parts because of small changes made to link them together. I would love to see DC have a similar unifying vision, and for that matter, Star Wars, although the recent announcement make it seem like they may have figured that out. I'm basically only familiar with DC characters through the movies, so I'll never appreciate them until they get good stories and good movies. And the interesting thing, Peter, is you brought up this idea of like a unifying figure. We thought that was going to be Jeff Johns. And of course, Jeff Johns is now not working with them after a lot of the allegations and other things that happened. But I still think the problem is here is Warner Brothers. I don't think they want to go with someone who has a unifying idea. They just want to, I think they look at these as just being purely cash cows, money making machines. And so I think Warner Brothers is in their own way. Anyway, he says, one nit jumped out from your discussion. Matt said he wanted a younger Wonder Woman like Alison Brie, but she's 3 years older than Gal Gadot. I always think of her as Annie from Community, but that show started 12 years ago, and she was 27 years old playing an 18-year-old. Matt, I didn't even do the math. I didn't even look it up. You said younger, and in my mind, Alison Brie does have like this youthful quality about her.
Look younger. It's classic Hollywood tricks. I mean, I don't really care what their real age is. Gal Gadot can be young, but she looks old.
She has a very mature look to her.
She just does. My wife is 30. She doesn't look 30, y'all.
No.
She does not look 30.
She looks 18.
She could play a high schooler.
Yeah.
She could play in Riverdale. Just like the people in Riverdale who are 30 years old playing 17-year-olds. And so my point, and I agree, I knew Alison Brie was in her late 30s. I know she's older than I am. But she's got that young look, I guess is what I'm trying to say. They need to look younger.
Okay.
Less mature.
Fair enough. I'll give you that there. Peter goes on to say, I don't think broad movie audiences care about recasting, and they're smart enough to figure it out. I would keep Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman and Jason Momoa as Aquaman. They are the canonical version of these characters for most people, unlike the many Supermen and Batman. And they're the highlights of the DCEU right now. I could take or leave Henry Cavill as Superman. He's a perfect fit for the part, but like you said, he has the baggage of 3 mediocre movies. I'm more than willing to give Robert Pattinson a shot as Batman after seeing him in Tenet. I don't know the right characters for this because I don't know DC, but I would start by making small movies with small characters, like the Marvel Netflix shows, then let them try out a lot of actors, writers, and directors, set in a world where big characters exist. Let the ridiculously overpowered characters frame the world, and more reasonably powered characters have a lot more leeway in villains. The only interesting thing you can do with godlike characters is to have them lose their powers. Wonder Woman 1984 was a mess, but they did handle this in an interesting way. Spider-Man had to fight the Vulture, who was one of the best MCU villains, but Thor would have electrocuted him in one shot. Imagine 3 to 4 good, interesting DC movies that escalate towards a bigger threat that the heroes can't handle, and that's when you bring in the big guns. Make sure you get the basics right before you push your chips in the middle, like Marvel did building the Avengers. I know the big 3 are the money for Warner Brothers and DC, but they're trapped in the mess caused by flooring it before they knew how to drive. These characters have been movie hits for 40 years and will continue to be for decades into the future. It's worth getting the foundation right. Cheers, Peter Christensen. P.S. Did you notice that I didn't mention Cyborg? Of course not, because no one cares.
Amen.
A little fire there by Peter at the end. I think Peter actually has a pretty good idea. Like, start with more reasonably powered characters and villains, and let it build to something where these existing heroes can't take it on, and then you step in Wonder Woman or Superman or Batman, because you're kind of right. I mean, if you got these amazing godlike superheroes, you have to then have these amazing godlike villains all the time. And it just, like, the power creep of the whole thing just gets to be astronomical, where next thing you know, it's like, if we don't fight off this villain from destroying not only our world but the entire galaxy, like it has to be that then every time. It makes it really hard to be relatable. So yeah, the real good ideas there, Peter. I like that. Let's jump over to Twitter at Fort of Nerd. We've got Tim Paulin. He says, here's the problem with DC. Too many reboots and standalones. While the idea can bring in new fans, it can also annoy other fans due to the continuity being rewritten. Imagine replacing Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr. after 2 or 3 films. No way is the MCU as successful. Pick a set of actors and stick with them. No more, oh, he's playing a different Joker in a different universe, or this Flash is on a different Earth. It's confusing and stupid. Stop it. I mean...
Yes.
I mean...
I hate DC for that. I don't know what's real.
Tim's not wrong.
No.
Tim's not wrong. Yeah. I agree. Like, pick a set, stay with it. Let's build towards something. Yeah. Okay. The underscore wrong is lagging at Walk to Mars. It says The Flash, but the universe needs to stay away from the CW drama. I love her, but she treats me like a brother because we grew up as siblings thing. Also, stay away from the movie version of the kid is too scared to fight thing. Use the cartoon movies as inspiration for the reboot. And then he says, side unrelated note, I used all my characters for that reply. So proud. I like the idea. I mean, the underscore wrong is lagging says to start with the Flash. And that kind of, Matt, was kind of where I said, like, use the Flash to do the crossover event, Crisis on Infinite Earths, and you can use that then to reset everything like DC did in the comics for the New 52, and then boom, you go from there. And so the only one that would be existing would be the Flash. I like that idea. I like the fact that someone else independently thought of that and came to the same conclusion. Or, or maybe they just totally agreed with me and, they wanted to, kiss up to me a little bit. Either way, I don't care because I still think it's a good idea regardless. Super friends, thank you so much for interacting with us and giving us your question, your answer to our question of the week, which was, again, how we would reboot or recast, restart over with the DC EU, the DCU films. We really appreciate it. Every week, you come out and you answer our questions, and we love you for it because it either validates or helps us see something in a different way that we didn't look at before, and we can continue to have a great conversation about it here and and on the Discords and on the social medias and all that. So anyway, thank you. Matt, how can our super friends help us out this week?
Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for writing in, responding to the question of the week, listening to us week in and week out, for sharing us with your friends and your family, and being a part of our community, jumping on the Discord, having conversations, sharing your food, your movies, your shows. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. If you're not on Discord,
get there.
Find us and chat.
By the way, we always have the Discord link in the show notes.
So look at the show notes,
there you
peeps.
Go. Yes.
And this week, I have a TV show recommendation, and it's on FX. You can get it on Hulu. That's how I watched it.
Okay.
Try out What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show. Many of you may be familiar with What We Do in the Shadows, the movie from Taika Waititi.
Mm-hmm.
Go watch the show. It's very good, very funny. Not for kids.
Okay.
Not for kids. They'll drop, they're not like a ton of swearing, but they'll drop a couple F-bombs in each episode. Other than that, there's nothing in it. It's very funny. Taika Waititi shows up in it at a point. It's really great. So if you haven't Go watch it. I know it's been up for some Emmy awards for comedies, but it's been put
Really?
up against some real good shows, like my favorite show, Schitt's Creek. But go watch it. It's excellent. It's got 2 seasons. It's very funny.
Okay. Good to know. I'll add that to my list.
Yeah.
Okay, so Matt, we wanted to have this week be our movie club, but instead of a
Yeah.
movie, we decided to go with a streaming show that is currently on Netflix. And of course,
Yes.
we don't have a lot of new big things to talk about, but we did get one big one that dropped at the very, very beginning of this month in January, and that was Cobra Kai Season 3.
Yes.
Super excited to talk about this tonight.
Spoilers, y'all.
Spoilers, yes. I will
Major
say
spoiler tag.
from this point on, we will talk spoilers. So if you are watching it as we record it live, you may want to turn the volume down a bit. Don't go anywhere, just turn the volume down a bit.
Yeah. Or
If
if you don't care about the show, listen, and
Yeah,
maybe you'll want to watch it.
there you go. And if you're listening to the podcast on Thursday when it releases, you may want to pause it at this point if you're still watching. So, that being said, you have been warned. We will be spoiling season 3 of Cobra Kai. Matt, I gotta say that I love the fact that right off the bat, Netflix does like the little like, watch the little like preview that kind of like catches you back up on season 1 and 2, because a lot of people are watching Cobra Kai for the first time. They put it on Netflix, in the
Right.
late fall, and so people are watching this, and so like they're seeing it for the first time. They're real fresh. I watched them back those first 2 seasons back when they were over on YouTube Red, which is no longer with us. R.I.P. YouTube Red. And I haven't rewatched them in a little while. So the little thing where they said, like, here's how to catch up, I really did appreciate that, because there were some things I forgot.
Too. On the Netflix YouTube, they had like a 25-minute video with the cast of Cobra Kai explaining what happened in seasons 1 and 2.
Oh, I
And that
didn't
was a
see
lot of
that.
fun to watch as well.
Okay.
I watched all of that stuff. I was so excited for
yeah,
this season.
I didn't.
I'll take anything Cobra Kai.
I didn't see that, but I did watch the recap, which was really nice. I will say we finished all of Cobra Kai in like 2 nights. Maybe it stretched into a third night. We definitely binged watched this, which,
yes, so did we.
On a side note, like, we're in this really weird kind of spot where like Cobra Kai comes out and we binge watch it, but then like The Mandalorian and now like WandaVision, like Disney Plus does like the release every week thing.
Yeah.
And Breed and I kind of had a little side chat about that, like, which do we like better? And it's really difficult because like I like both, but for different reasons. Like the once a week kind of gives you that water cooler moment to go online and talk with friends and whatever about just that one episode. But with binge watching, like, you can just like get through it really fast, and then you can like talk about everything and like kind of go through the whole series at once and get into everything without having to be like, let's wait. So like, anyway, it was different going back to like, oh yeah, I can finish an entire season in just like 2 days or 3 days, whatever it was.
We live in a glorious time. I mean,
yes, we do.
To media, it's just awesome. I love that there's some shows that'll drop, and because we don't have to choose which one we like better because we get them both.
It's true.
What a world!
What a world! What a world! I'm melting. Okay,
I love it.
So let me ask you this: how overall, just real quick, high level, what did you think of this season?
I really liked it. Some different things that I will point out that I didn't like. And that's some things that I really did like, especially in comparison to other shows who have taken a similar problem and gone in a different direction with it.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the season, and holy crap, the ending and the setup for season 4 is just, I am I want it now. What
Right.
about you?
Yeah.
Overall.
Overall, I'd say that I really enjoyed this season, but I didn't enjoy it as much as season 1 and 2.
Uh-huh.
Um, for me, I felt like season 1 and 2 maybe had a little more drama. Not that this season didn't have drama, but just like, and I don't mean like drama for drama's sake, like,
Right.
like Peter
Not
Christensen
teen
said,
drama.
like teen drama, like the CW type of drama, but
Mm-hmm.
more of like, there seemed to be a little more underlying tension between the characters of Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence in the
Right.
first 2 seasons. This season, I kind of felt like that wasn't as strong.
Right.
And so some of the, and not all, but some of that tension that's really needed between those two, the kind of the different philosophies of Cobra Kai versus Miyagi-Do, like it just didn't hit on exactly the same intensities it did in the first 2 seasons. So for me, this season was still really good and I really enjoyed it, but it was just a little bit lesser of enjoyment than the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, I will say, I'm going to start with my first criticism.
Okay.
And that is the first 3 episodes of this season were not very good, in my opinion. They were slow. They were weak. I thought there was way too much focus on Daniel LaRusso, his like family drama, and then the drama with his dealership that nobody that's watching the show cares about.
Yeah.
I just felt like they spent entirely too many episodes on the LaRusso car dealership,
Yeah.
Daniel's emotional problems with that drama. And it didn't pay off at all.
Well, yes
I didn't
and
like it.
no. So I agree that was a criticism I had too. Is that they did spend too much time early on uh dealing with like the, you know, oh, the dealership this, the dealership that. But it does set up an episode that happens later in the season that I was a huge nostalgic fan service payoff. It was humongous in that category. So
I
like
agree,
it served its
but it could have been done
purpose.
better.
But yes, that's exactly
Could have
right.
done it in one episode.
Yes,
One episode.
you could have had one episode to set that up, and instead I'm like you. I agree. They felt that it dragged out for 3. Here's another criticism I have. If you've seen the second season ends with Miguel falling over
Yeah.
the railing, and he falls and he breaks his back, and we know that he goes to the hospital. And it starts with him being in a coma. And I
Mhm.
get that. Here's the problem I have. Because they went straight into like the broken back, coma, he's never going to walk again type of scenario. And I went, this show is about karate. He is the main
Yes.
karate star of the, the younger part of the cast, the teenagers, the high schoolers. If you have him not walking all season long, not doing any karate, you're going to have to fill it with the other kids and the other characters, which they attempted to do, but it's not as exciting. He's like, it would be like going back to the first Karate Kid movie and be like, hey, Daniel LaRusso's really the star, but we're basically going to sideline him from doing anything of consequence for the entire second half of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to care about it. So I didn't care for that kind of setup. I went, show him injured. Break a leg, with enough time that's going to heal. Something, right?
Sure.
But they went for high drama with him landing and breaking his back and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my criticism, though. He has
that
this.
wasn't it.
No. He has this really, really tremendous injury, okay? And we got this set up, and like, we know it's not hard to see that we're going to see him walking again by the end of the season. Otherwise, they would just write him out of the show real quick.
Yeah.
Give him something else to do. Kind of the whole Friday Night Lights thing, you know, with
Mhm.
what's I was say with the six, whatever his name is.
Jason Street.
Jason Street, yes. I can remember the funny, I remember his number, but not his name. Anyway. Um what I didn't like though was that like Johnny Lawrence was the one to like keep pushing him to walk, and they show him like trying to get him to stand up and do all these things. I was like, I kept thinking like, to people that have had this real injury, you're not like it just felt very disingenuous to say like, hey, you just had this massive injury, and within like 6 months time, all you need is someone there taking you to a rock concert to get your foot moving again, and putting you in the little hoist in your living room and getting
Mhm.
you angry in order to get you standing up. Like, it just felt like, hey, if you get angry or you listen to music and you got this heightened, maybe emotional state, all of a sudden you're going to be able to walk again. I looked at that and kind of went, ugh, really lazy writing. You wrote yourself into kind of a corner, and now you're trying to get out of it. It just feels like, if I had that sort of disability, if I had been injured and I was watching this show, I probably would have been extremely angry and went, WTF. Like, that's not how people are going to heal from that sort of injury.
So
I had a problem
I'm
with
gonna
that.
completely and utterly disagree with you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, like hardcore. That was me and Jesse's favorite parts. Um,
The comedy
I
was
loved
fun.
it.
The comedy was
I
fun in those parts.
I thought it was fantastic.
Ugh.
Uh, Look, you have to realize what you're watching. You're not watching real life.
I understand.
You're watching it. You have to suspend reality. It's like going into Star Wars and being like, he had his hand cut off and now he's got a robotic one. That's ridiculous. Like, at least that's my opinion on these. And I'm used to suspending that reality because I love the CW shows like Riverdale.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm used to watching. So that storyline, if you put that in Riverdale, that's the least crazy storyline that you're gonna see easily. So I guess I'm used to that kind of ridiculousness. And I guess I can see like if you had that disability that could be frustrating. But what is interesting about Cobra Kai, at least in my opinion, is Cobra Kai doesn't care about your feelings. The show. They say words that you're not supposed to say anymore. They do things you're not supposed to do. It's very
Sure.
80s vibe. And I'm not saying it's okay, and I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying it's good.
Yeah, but they show someone
Um,
who's still stuck mentally in that time period. Yes.
right. And that's
Yeah.
Johnny, and he's trying to prove that his way can still work. And you know what? For Miguel, it worked. And for maybe the next person, that's not what they need. They need something else. And so to me, I loved it. I thought that that was appropriate for Miguel. Like he's connected to Johnny in some way, and that it to me it made sense that he would be the one to help him, and that it would be through these unique get your mind off of it methods of determination. And no, that doesn't work for everyone. But what I'm just glad they didn't go the Jason Street route. That's what I'm trying to
Okay.
say.
Yeah, no,
Is
I
I'm
get that.
glad they didn't have him in the wheelchair. I'm glad he didn't sneak off to try to go to Mexico to get a surgery. You
Right.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah, no,
I'm
I get
glad
it.
none of that weird stuff happened. So, while I understand where you're coming from, I'll just play devil's advocate, and I disagree. I think that was one of my favorite parts
Yeah.
of the show was the unique way that he was recovering from the injury.
Uh I
But I get
yeah.
it. I do get
It,
it.
it's
Maybe
hard.
I just don't. Maybe I have less feelings than you
Yeah,
do.
it's just hard, I think, for me, because the rest of the show has been really based in reality, right? So like, it's not like, hey, all of a
Sort
sudden
of.
they're doing like, magical karate, and you know
Right.
he did some sort of, like, Pokemon,
Mhm.
Dragon Ball Z type of move. No, like,
Sure. Sure.
it's actually karate or kempo, or like they're doing like real type of stuff.
Mhm.
So it seems to be fairly grounded in reality for me. That's why I kind of look at it and go, there's no way you're in a coma for that long, and then you come out of your coma and they're saying you might, telling your mom you may never walk again. And then 2 weeks later, you're at a rock concert tapping your foot. Like, it just, I get
He did
though
get a
that they've
surgery, right? I mean, they did point out that
I think
that
so.
could work.
I mean I think they did do that. Yes. I kind
And
of forget that little tidbit
I'm
because
just they kind of threw that in there, and it was like right. It was like it will heal you, but his Jason Streets was like, you got to go to Mexico and pay him in pesos.
right. Yeah.
And this one was like, no, we're gonna come to you, and we're like a legit doctor.
Yeah.
And we know what we need to do to fix it. So I'm way more forgiving, I think, than I would be if Jason Street went to Mexico and got healed.
Yeah.
Not that I have anything against Mexico or the doctors there.
Or Jason Street.
I do have something against Jason Street. I don't like him.
Okay, fair enough. So, do you have other criticisms about the third season?
Yes, I do. Things that I really don't like, and I started to not like it really in season 2, but the character Tori and Sam LaRusso. I'm out.
Just the drama between the two girls?
Or
just their characters
in general.
Okay.
I feel like they're bad characters. I feel like they're written weird. Their vendetta is so strong and poorly written, I feel like. And to me, Sam makes absolutely no sense just from a casting. I'm sure she's a sweet gal. But for me to think that when you watch Sam LaRusso get ready to fight, you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, this is the least athletic person that they could have chosen to play.
Now, in fairness, though, I know what you're saying, but like, go back to 1984 and look at Ralph Macchio in The Karate Kid.
Right.
He's skin and bones. He's a toothpick. Like he's just like you look at the kid and you're like, how in the world would Johnny Lawrence ever lose to this kid? Like, come on.
It was an illegal kick. It was an
an illegal kick to the face. Yeah. No, so like, I get that they kind of maybe wanted to go that route with the casting with Sam. They wanted to get some girl.
They could have cast somebody who looked like him, and that's great, and carried himself like that. But when even in the Karate Kid, when he gets ready to fight, he looks at least like he knows how
athletic,
to fight, positioned correctly, and he looks athletic.
Yeah,
she does not, and that drives Jesse and I up the wall anytime she's in it. I'm like, this is so unbelievable, and it takes me out of the experience because there's no way. Give me a break. Everybody else in that show, like, they look like they could beat the living crap out of me.
Yeah.
And I'm 30 and I weigh enough.
Tori at least looks like she can beat the crap out of you.
I don't have a problem with her fighting. Yeah, she's scary. But the Tori and Sam thing I don't like, and then Sam LaRusso just in general, and her storyline this season was really weak. And speaking of like PTSD, right? And we're talking real PTSD, and her and I know people who have PTSD, and I can see them being offended by her version of it, where she saw somebody break their arm, like, give me a break kind of a thing. Like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big criticism that I had. The rest, I'm done with criticisms. That's all.
I'm actually kind of done with criticisms too. Okay. I want to talk about some of the things I really liked that they did in season 3. So before we do that though, I'm going to say this whole season really revolves around John Crease. It's really about John Crease's takeover of Cobra Kai, and kind of like how Johnny Lawrence has like really kind of lost his sense of purpose because of Miguel's injury and the fallout from the big brawl that happened at the school. Like Daniel LaRusso's, dealership isn't doing well because no one wants to come there because he promotes all the karate stuff, kick the competition, all that sort of stuff. And the kids have to go back to school and they have to find out, how they're going to do stuff. But like John Kreese's takeover of Cobra Kai really becomes the driving, motivating force of a lot of actions for a lot of the story of this third season. The first big thing I want to say that I loved that they did this, and I thought it was a real highlight, is that just because there was the big fight scene in the school and Miguel got injured, that doesn't stop the drama of the kids still hating each other and still like wanting to kick the crap out of each other. Because from the beginning, they're tussling, they're fighting, then they get broken up and the school comes in and whatever. And then they find like subtle ways in the soccer games to fight. And, you know, then they're fighting in the like the abandoned, like, you know, laser tag paintball place. And then there's the big battle that happens in the LaRusso house. Like, they, just because this one event happened, they didn't write it off as like that, well, now everyone's kind of happy because, or, you know, we've all kind of reconciled because this one kid got injured. No, there's still real beef. They still hate each other. Friendships were torn apart and become enemies. Like, I like that they stuck with that, because that is very true how a lot of kids that age emotionally would be responding and lashing out. I thought that was very well done.
I completely agree with you. I have written down awesome teen drama. That's literally what I have written down, and it's absolutely true. Like, the fights were always epic. They're over the top and unrealistic, of course. That's how the fights have been in this show so far.
Yeah.
And as much crap as I give the, you know, Sam LaRusso and the Tori drama, there was some story there that was at least somewhat interesting. Her having to overcome something, though it wasn't executed in the way that I would have liked to see it executed. At least there was a story to be told. But the whole the teen drama and the fighting and the absolute division in that school, and to your point, this is and this is a criticism the show gets. It's over the top. It's unrealistic, but is it? Like, if you lived in an area where karate was the thing, this doesn't seem so far-fetched to me.
Well, it's like we talked about when we were talking about the idea of like Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
Everyone looks at this who doesn't live in a community that's obsessed with high school football, and we go, really? People are like this? You live in Texas. How real was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, just it's football's everything.
Right.
It's everything.
Right. So if we lived in that community in the valley where karate was everything, that would actually be a fairly accurate representation of what was going on.
Absolutely. So I thought the teen drama was great. Miguel kind of being a loner, not really being able to identify her side in it, and, you know, feeling like his only friend was Johnny.
Yes.
This 48-year-old drunk.
Right.
Who's figuring things out, who we all know he's the true protagonist of the story. But I thought I agree, that was great. The other thing that I really liked, that I started out hating but ended up, like I said, really liking, was the Crease flashbacks.
Yes.
I thought in the first couple, I was like, they're going to humanize him. They're going to humanize him, and they're going to try to make me like feel bad for Crease.
Right. No.
And then the last one comes and you're like, nope, he's a dick.
Nope.
Like, that sucks. Like, I hate him.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Like that just, it solidifies it, and it gives a bad A reason to be called Cobra Kai. It just like, it made things 1,000 times better.
Yep. I thought the same thing. I was like, don't make me try to like John Crease, like showing a girlfriend at home before he goes to Vietnam. And I was like, But then in that last one where like see him having a fight to the death and do all the things, and like he stands up for his buddy, and then the pit filled with cobras, I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, okay. Because the interesting thing is, like, we know some history of his character, but like we get to see a very defining moment when he makes a very, very conscious choice of, this is the path my life is going down now. This is who I'm going to be. For better or worse, he makes a decision and he follows it. And I'm glad that they didn't try to make you go like, well, he's just a misunderstood guy.
Right.
Nope. It's basically like seeing like how a villain becomes a villain.
Right.
Like, you already know the story of how, how the Joker is the Joker. Like, the Joker's the villain in the Batman movies, but then to see a movie where they're like, and this is how we get him to this point. You
Right.
go, oh, okay. I like that with the John Kreese story.
Yeah,
I agree with you. It was a great
it was
thing.
excellent.
Yep.
It was excellent because then it makes sense because we know in season 2, I think they call out that he claims to be this war veteran in Vietnam, and yet there's no indication of his service. And then they kind of give you a reason as to why that
Right.
he's part of a special unit, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay,
Yeah, he was Spec Ops. Yeah.
that makes sense. That makes sense. Special. That makes sense now. So that was really cool.
Are we now referring to Special Ops as Spence Ops? It's named
Yeah,
after
sure.
me? That's
Sure.
amazing.
You're so lucky.
What did I do? Okay, here's something I thought was a huge, amazing, great moment. And it's very nostalgic. When Daniel LaRusso goes to Japan to have this conversation to try to, get back the exclusivity of selling the Japanese import cars. And it doesn't work out for him, so he decides to go to Okinawa because he feels lost and he wants to kind of feel the Mr. Miyagi's presence, right? And he goes there and he ends up running into Kamiko, which was the love interest from the second movie. And the second, when they said he was going to go to Japan and Okinawa, I went, oh, great, because I knew that they were going to try to bring in some of the nostalgia from the second movie. We've seen a lot of nostalgia from the first movie and just a little from the second, but mostly the first. And he sees Kamiko, and she's this dancer and this dance instructor, and they get to talk, and he asks, her things like, did you ever get married? And she's like, no. She's like, it's really hard when the person you're trying to compare it to, actually fought to the death for you. I'm like, and she's looking at Daniel LaRusso right now. And I was like, that could be very true for someone. And like, I felt like the power of like, that could be truth. Like she may have found other people that came in and out of her life, but at one point in her life, someone loved her that was willing to fight to the death to save her.
Right.
That would be hard to overcome. So like, that was great and all of that. And she reads to him the letters that Mr. Miyagi wrote to her whatever, her like teacher or whatever, that he loved back in Okinawa. And that was beautiful and that was heart-wrenching. And I looked over at my wife at one point, and I'm not gonna lie, I had a tear in my eye, and I looked over her and she just looked at me and she's like, just don't. I'm like, okay, she's feeling a little too. So there was that build up. And then they introduced the villain from that movie. The guy who, he fought to the death, and, he gives him the famous, live or die, man, live or die. He's like, die. He's like, wrong answer, honk. And he like did that whole thing. And I was just like, oh my gosh, how awkward is this? And they played it super awkward at first, where he was like, he's like, no, I will get drink. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this guy still carries a grudge. Like, and then they play it off where they realize, that they had more in common and this and that. And he shows Daniel some new Miyagi-Do that Daniel didn't ever learn from Mr. Miyagi. And gives him the scroll and all this, like, but like there's tension. There's real tension through that whole thing. And I felt that. Like, it was very palpable. And then, of course, the roles are reversed and he gets to give the live or die, man, live or die, honk. And then he starts laughing and breaks the tension. And he's just like, I've been waiting a long time to do that. And I was just like, oh, like that whole thing for me was just satisfying on a nostalgia kick, but as well as like it actually plays well, and there's tension that they built and real dialogue, and like how would it be seeing someone that you fought to the death but then you decided to spare at the last minute after some like 30-year period of time. And then of course the last little bit was Kamiko introduces Daniel to the little girl that in the middle of a hurricane, he sacrifices himself to go out and save. And he sees her, and like I was like, oh my gosh, like I was getting like really emotional in that because I was like, it's the little girl, and you could see how much that meant to her. And then she said, she said, I'm in sales. He said, well, yeah, so am I, at least for a little while. And then he says, what do you do? And she says, I'm the head purchaser, the head salesperson, of vice president for this company that he's been trying to work with. And I was like, well, homeboy saved girl's life. There's no way she's not going to try to, go to bat for him. And he ends up securing the thing and resolving the other problems back at home. That whole episode, though, it's fan service. I get it, but it was beautiful. The idea that like, a lot of this like little, fishing village in Okinawa is now a big mall, and it's been modernized, and the characters and seeing 3 characters that all were very important in that second movie. I really, really, really enjoyed that. It was nostalgic. It was great. It was done well. That was a high point for me this season.
Yeah, Okinawa was the high point. Everything before that, with that LaRusso dealership and the whole LaRusso family, not a high point for me. Quite low, but that was all excellent. When they started to get to the meat of why he was, that was that was awesome. I agree. It was awkward and oh my gosh,
it was so awkward.
It was so good. One of my favorite parts of this season. There's so many good things that happened. Not one of my favorites, because I'll save that one for last, but the Allie love story.
Yes.
Now, it started out funny, right? She wrote back, and he doesn't know how to use technology.
Yes, he doesn't know how to
like help.
Yeah, he doesn't understand the social interaction of Facebook. Like he's like, you didn't like all her photos, did you? He's like, no. Why? He's like, you did. Oh, don't.
Right.
I love that. That was so good.
All of that stuff with Miguel is great.
Yeah, that whole fish out of water. Yes.
Where he's like back in the day, and like
yes.
He's still like not sure what cool is and what girls actually want.
Well, he wants to impress this girl so badly.
Oh,
that he just doesn't have any concept of like what he should do. I love that.
He's got her locked away in a time capsule.
Yep.
And you can tell. And that whole series of events that lead to them meeting and going on like a pseudo date, and then going to the same party, and the awkwardness, because then Daniel shows up and it's like, this is the girl that we fought over, and all of that was really great drama. It was really funny.
Yep. And
I can't tell you how grateful I was with the outcome of the interaction that they both had with her.
Mm-hmm.
That there was emotional character development from all 3 characters, really, where they all went, man, this is in the past. Like, this was high school, man. This was a long time ago.
Yes.
And Allie is great.
Yep.
But I've got something really great with Mama Miguel.
Ooh. Before you get to Mama Miguel, I just want to say one thing about the Allie storyline. I loved that the real drama between the 2 characters all the way back in 1984 was over this one girl.
Yeah.
And that it took this one girl 30 years later coming back into both of their lives to help them kind of like reframe their sense of like outlook on the situation back then and the situation now. Mm-hmm. And that one girl was able to like help them mend the fence in a way that they've never been able to do, even though they've kind of tried and then not tried and tried and not tried throughout the season. That her coming back really was that catalyst.
Yeah.
I really thought that was good.
And she did a great job. She played it perfectly. She was, busting them both up, like both of y'all were idiots. Both of y'all sucked at dating. Both of y'all
Yes.
were ridiculous in high school. Your rivalry was stupid. And from my perspective, there's 3 perspectives. Did you know that? Basically, right? She was just trying to explain, like, hey, that was awesome. And I was so glad when they had that goodbye moment where you thought this could be like the moment where Johnny screws it up again. And he still doesn't learn and he doesn't progress, but he's learned.
Yeah.
And you see the character growth and the development there. And that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So that ended really, really well. I was really grateful.
Mama Miguel.
Yeah.
You wanted to get to Mama Miguel and I sidetracked you.
Oh, no, I just was grateful he chose her. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
That he didn't screw it up by making out with Allie or something.
Okay, yes.
That he kind of figured it out.
I also like the fact that, like, that's a more mature, grown-up relationship that he's been, like, kind of working towards through 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And to see that it's actually kind of working out for him a little bit was nice. Yeah. Was really nice.
He needed something nice.
I gotta say, Peter brought this up, I think, the previous week in his email, where he mentioned Mrs. LaRusso as being in the Tammy Taylor TV Mom Hall of Fame. I really did enjoy Daniel LaRusso. What's her name? Heather, Jessica, I can't remember right now. Anyway, we'll just call her Mrs. LaRusso. It'll come to me.
White girl name here.
It'll come to me in a minute, I'm sure. I really did like the fact that, like, she had a very more assertive role this season.
Amanda,
yes, Amanda. She had a very more assertive role this season, and I did enjoy the fact that, like, she's trying to figure out what's going on. She sees the issues that are still there, and she's the one that, like, has to be like, Daniel, like, stop trying to ignore this. You're trying to ignore the karate at this point. That's not the problem. Like, we've got to do something about it. And, like, she gets in a little bit of trouble herself with John Crease because she's trying to stand up for her kid, like I think any mother would.
Right.
It just happens to be that, John Crease is literally a snake and is smart enough to, realize that, he can hurt people even without having to, physically fight them.
Right.
So.
I agree. She played a much more this season, and because Daniel was MIA. And
he was off in Japan for like half the season.
Daughter
yeah.
Go through what she was going through, and they didn't know exactly how to help, and that's hard as a parent, I'm sure, to see your teenage daughter going through something that you can't quite help her get through.
Yeah.
My final thing that I want to talk about, because this is one of my favorite characters, is Hawk.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
Big Hawk fan. Yeah. And I know that, like, he's kind of a jerk and he's done some horrible things, but throughout the season, I feel like there's a lot of people who will disagree with me, and I've seen online disagree with me. I feel like they did a good job setting up his redemption story.
Yeah.
Where at the end, the final battle, when he is redeemed or chooses redemption,
right.
To me, it wasn't like, oh, wow, all of a sudden now you're doing better. There were little things that you saw throughout the season that when he broke Dimitri's arm, he was like,
oh,
yeah, I didn't like doing that. That felt wrong. Even though he wants to be a baddie, right? And he wants to be Crease's little friend, and he wants to be tough. He's learning by watching the other dojos and watching Johnny and Miguel, and he's kind of softening and realizing that maybe Crease's way isn't quite the right way, and maybe he doesn't have all of the attack first mentality that Crease is preaching.
Yep.
Because he's seeing his friends get kicked out of Cobra Kai. He's seeing some really rough training methods. He's like, when they go and they try and get the snake from the zoo, he's tentative.
Yep.
and he's learning, well, maybe this isn't for me, and maybe this is stupid. Maybe what we're doing is really stupid. And I loved his when he finally turned it around. I was like up out of my chair cheering because I love Hawk so much and I wanted his redemption story and I wanted him to come back. And I was super grateful. And I felt like it was foreshadowed throughout the season.
Yeah, that was kind of like the last point I had, and I just kind of wrote it simply as the face to heel turn and the heel to face turn, which like in wrestling vernacular, a face is a good guy, a heel is a bad guy. So we see a bad guy like Hawk because Hawk has become a bully. He's become everything that he hated about some of the characters in the first season, and we see this because all of a sudden now those former bullies are now part of Cobra Kai and he's hanging out with them.
Yeah.
And even Miguel says, these your friends now? And like it really kind of helps cement that like he's become that. So like it's setting up his heel to face turn. But then the other side of the equation is we get Robbie, who goes from being a hero, a good guy, a face, to then, turning to heel because Daniel LaRusso basically sets him up so he goes away to juvie, and that's hard for him. And he feels like his dad is never there for him because his dad is constantly choosing either making bad choices so he's not there, or he chooses to be there for Miguel because he's made a commitment there. And so he feels like his dad isn't there for him. He feels like Daniel betrayed him. And so then he's then accepted in by the arms of John freaking Crease, and it sets up this huge thing where now he's gone from being a good guy to now he's going to be the bad guy. This is where now the drama is going to start residing. And I thought that the writers wrote it really well to just reverse some roles this season, which will help shake things up, cause some different tension and some different drama going forward that I think the show is going to need in order to kind of sustain some of the storylines and some of the conflict. So I really thought that really well. There's a lot of other like little things, but go watch it. If you haven't watched it yet and you're listening to this, I mean, we spoiled some major things, but go watch it or go rewatch it. Or if you've watched it, there's other things you like. Matt, here's the question though I want to ask for you, and it'll probably be our question for the Super Friends for our question of the week. Where do you think they're gonna go in season 4 story-wise?
Well, I mean, I feel like they set it up. I mean, I can't get all beats. I feel like they set it up pretty clearly that the what is their name? The Eagle Fang
Karate. Yeah.
Group has joined up with Miyagi-Do, and they're going to create a name. I think they're just going to go with Miyagi-Do.
I would hope so. Eagle Fang is just a Johnny pipe dream of something that sounds badass. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's going to be, them joining forces against Crease and his friends. And the culmination of the event is going to go to the All Valley. That's what it's going to be. That's going to be the climax of season 4. And I don't think they can have another season. Maybe they can. I've read that the writers say they have 6 seasons kind of in the chamber. But that has to be the climax, is somebody is going to face off with Robbie at the end. And I hope it's Miguel, and I think it's going to be epic.
Here's the problem. I don't know that the All Valley is going to be the culmination, only because if I remember, I think the All Valley is supposed to be like right around Christmas time. Like December. Like I feel like it was like really supposed to be really, really close. Maybe they shifted it and put it in the spring, so maybe it could be that. But the party that they were having at the country club was supposed to be like an early Christmas party. So I thought that was like happening like early December. And so that they were having the meeting with, the city council like 2 weeks before the event was supposed to happen. that's because they were trying to appeal it, like last minute appeal, that sort of thing. So I really don't like. I'm having a hard time going like All Valley's going to be the end. I think they're going to have the All Valley and something's going to happen, and it's. I think they're going to have to do something where they're going to have to split the Johnny Lawrence Daniel LaRusso, because I don't think they can sustain the John Kreese against the other two. Like, I think it was a great story, but I think they're going to have to do something where the two dojos are going to go against the one, but something's going to have to happen, and there's going to be a fracture and a split, and it's going to be an every man for himself. And, you know, I think it's got to set something like that up.
There's definitely going to be a split. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
There's no way Johnny and Daniel can be in the same that long a whole season. There's going to be a split. I think it will be a little more amicable than it has been in the past.
Sure.
But I think it'll be a mutual agreement. Like, yeah, you're not teaching my kids what, and you're not teaching my kids what I want. So let's just part ways, and we'll meet you at the All Valley or whatever.
Yeah.
I can definitely see.
Do you think they go 6 seasons, or do you think they do one more season and then they call it?
I think they're going to do as many seasons as they're going to watch. So if they really have 6 seasons, they're going to go 6 seasons.
Interesting.
I don't think we're ending at season 4. I think it's way too popular, and Netflix just got it.
I mean, that's true, and the 3rd season had already been filmed.
Yeah, so YouTube did that one.
Yeah.
So they've got...
So Netflix yes, they bought the rights, but the 4th season is going to be their first one they're going to be paying for to film. So Netflix typically will do 2 to 3 seasons of a show that they'll pay for, and then, you know, then the costs start going up, right? Because actors want more money, whatever. Right. So that's why it only goes a few seasons usually. So they could go 6 seasons. I think you're right. The show could go 6 seasons. I think season 4 is gonna. I think you're probably right. There's gonna be a split, and I think we're gonna see the All Valley play a big important role. I think we're gonna see. I think we're gonna see the introduction of the other character that we saw in the 3rd movie, and I think that person's gonna come back into play and is gonna wreak a bunch of havoc. That's going to help set up maybe a 5th and 6th season. I'm just guessing. Anyway, so Super Friends, that's gonna be our question of the week. Where do you think season 4? What do you think is going to happen in season 4 of Cobra Kai? If you've watched it, we're going to want your answers. If you haven't seen it and you just want to take a wild guess, that works too. We are totally okay with that. So we'll get that question of the week out. You can answer us on the email, fortofnerd@gmail.com, facebook.com/fortofnerd, Twitter @fortofnerd, Instagram fortofnerd, the Fortress of Nerditude Discord, which you can get the link from the show notes. Or you can call in 801-477-7687, and you could leave us a voicemail, and we could play that next week. And I'm looking forward to the answers, Matt. I want to see what the Super Friends, how they think it's going to play out.
Yeah.
Matt, episode 217 in the books. 217 weeks straight without missing one. I'm excited. I know we got just a little bit left of January, but we got February coming up. We got some exciting topics coming down the road. I'm looking forward to doing this again next week.
Me too. Gonna be awesome.
Can't wait. All right, Super Friends, from all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude, to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you always.